This video today is to talk about conflicts in the church. I think it'd be a very good idea to determine first what a conflict is. First, the conflict comes from the Latin word fligere. I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but it literally means to strike together. There's 4 types of conflict that you can see in a church: intrapersonal, interpersonal, and substantive. An interpersonal conflict is a conflict that typically would involve large groups of people. And these large groups of people are people that have maybe differing viewpoints. I think a good way to solve this problem is to have each of the groups of people have representatives that can sit down with a mediator to try to iron out whatever conflict there is there. A second type is interpersonal. The interpersonal conflict is typically one between one person and another person, personality conflict. You may have to agree to disagree. You may have to agree not to be with each other. But I think it's a good idea to sit down with a mediator still, see if you can iron out the personality conflict. You may not be able to. It may be a waste of time, but it's a valuable effort to solve that problem. A third kind is a substantive conflict. A substantive conflict is an issue such as maybe you want to spend money and another group thinks you don't have the money. Our textbook, the Leadership Handbook of Management and Administration, gives an example of a group of people in a church wanting to re-roof a church and another group of people in the church wanting to start a ministry to help the poor. I think an idea here would be to sit down with the groups of people and suggest that you look at the finances. Maybe you have enough money to do both. Maybe you have enough resources to do both. If you don't, come up with which one is the most pressing issue. If the most pressing issue is roofing the church, then roof the church. If the more pressing issue is to help the poor in the neighborhood, then help the poor in the neighborhood. If necessary, sit down with a mediator. The next question is, are conflicts always bad? I don't think so. Conflicts are human nature. It's something that's just going to happen. And I think that conflict in a church is not only not always bad, but I think it's necessary. A pastor of mine once told me that everybody has growing pains. And a church is no exception. When churches grow, they have growing pains. They have leaders that leave, leaders that come. As the group of people adapts, there will be conflict. The conflict comes, whether a conflict is good or bad depends on how it's handled. If we look at conflict and say, oh, well, we're going to sweep it under the rug, conflict is going to be bad because eventually everything that's been swept under the rug will explode. And when it explodes, it's going to be really bad. I think the vital part here is to take care of the conflict before it gets to that point. As conflict grows, take for instance, a church has more people, they will have more money. With more money, they can do more things. Conflict is not always bad. Determining how it's handled, that's what leads to it being good or bad. If you don't have it that good, if it's not handled right, it's going to be bad. If it's handled right, not only will it be good, but it will aid in the growth of the church. I think this is key. How you handle conflict is the most important thing. Handle it biblically. If you don't, it's going to cause problems.